Okay, I think we'll kick this webinar off. So thank you everyone for joining. Excellencies, co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good morning and evening for those joining online from all around the world. My name is Lyndall Bull and I'm the Value Added Coordinator here within the Forestry Division at the Food and Agriculture Organisation of the United Nations, located in a very warm Rome in Italy. I'm delighted to be your moderator here today for this third webinar in our global webinar series called Advancing Forest-Based Bioeconomy Solutions to ensure that resource supply meets growing demand. For those of you who have joined for our previous webinars in this series, you'll know that it is part of the country and organisation-led initiative on sustainable forest-based bioeconomy, or COLI. This is supported by the Federal Ministry, Agriculture and Forestry, Climate and Environmental Protection, Regions and Water Management of the Republic of Austria and the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry in Finland. And we thank those countries for their kind support. I'm also very pleased to share with you today some news from the COLI process, which encompasses a range of different activities to support the work of both UNFF and FAO. Austria will be hosting a country-led initiative on advancing sustainable forest-based bioeconomy approaches in a summit format in Vienna from the 23rd to the 26th of February 2026. This will be a hybrid event with in-person attendance by invitation, but open online attendance. So very much looking forward to the development and that summit in early 2026. The insights and outcomes that we have from these webinars, which is a 6-webinar series, will feed into the summit with areas of that event, including forest finance, wooden buildings, agroforestry, supply chains, supply and demand dynamics, as we'll pick up on today, and of course, innovation. Which brings me to today's webinar. Forests and the products they provide are well recognised as essential parts of the bioeconomy. The breadth of the products they offer are truly astonishing, from food to construction, pharmaceutical, energy, just to name a few. It's well established that legal and sustainable forest-related value chains are essential if forests are to achieve their potential to underpin carbon-neutral economies while generating decent employment for millions of people, while also upholding the environmental values that forests offer the world. However, like all material use, global demand for wood products is projected to increase, and many projections show a substantial increase. The development of the bioeconomy, and in particular increased substitution of forest-based products for their non-renewable counterparts, has the potential to significantly further increase that demand, and we'll hear about that further on in the webinar. Of course, with such increases in demand, there'll also be an increase in the need for decisions around trade-offs and the management of competing interests. And it's for these reasons that we need to see ongoing and increased innovation right along the forest product supply chain to ensure that not only do we use the forest in the most optimal way for its highest value and best use, but that we do so in a sustainable way. And that is precisely why we're here today. I've very much been looking forward to this third webinar. I'm looking forward to hearing about the regional interest from our co-chairs on the topic. I'm interested in hearing from both our speakers as well as our expert panel. For those of you that know me, you would know well that forest supply and demand trends and innovation are perhaps among, if not the most, topics that are dear to my heart. So I really can't wait to hear from all of you and get the webinar underway. And on that note, I encourage all of you to use the chat function to share your thoughts and insights and questions for the Q&A. There's the chat, but there's also the Q&A buttons at the bottom of your screen. So please don't be shy. And as we've done for our previous webinars, to kick things off, we'll launch a quick poll to find out where you're all joining from. Interesting to see at this earlier hour. So I'm going to launch the poll, and that should pop up on your screen. We can see about half of you are from Europe, but I have to say I am thrilled to see that we have a quarter from Asia and 5% from Oceania. I think with the previous times of the webinar, it hasn't quite suited those regions, and the Middle East also. I think that's we haven't had many from that region in the past, so I'm very glad you're joining us. And still, those numbers are still jumping around a little bit. I think we've come to an end. So yeah, we've got about 50% of you from Europe, quarter from Asia, and then a bit of a spread then from the rest of the world. So that's lovely. So thank you, and welcome to everybody. Oh, hang on, I can share the results. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. Very good. Okay, and thank you to the North American who is here. It would be very late. So whoever you are, you're very welcome. Thank you. All right, let's stop sharing and move on. Okay, so it's now time to hear from the perspectives from our co-chairs from Australia and New Zealand. For those of you that have joined the previous webinars, you would know that for each of the webinars, we are pleased to welcome generally two country co-chairs, and today it is Australia and New Zealand. So to kick us off, it's my great honour to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Guy Bursell. He is the Assistant Secretary of the AgVet Chemicals and Forestry Branch in Australia. Mr. Bursell, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone attending. On behalf of the Australian Government, I'd like to extend my thanks and appreciation to the FAO and the governments of Austria and Finland for their efforts in organising today's webinar. I'd also like to thank our speakers and participants for joining today. As Lyndall said, my name is Guy Bursell and I lead the forestry branch at the Australian Government's Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. And alongside New Zealand, I'm pleased to co-chair today's webinar on advancing forest-based bioeconomy solutions to ensure resource supply meets growing demand. Today's agenda focuses on three interconnected themes: innovation across the forest value chain, value optimisation through technology and smarter use of materials, and youth-driven solutions shaping the future of our sector. These themes are core to a sustainable forest-based bioeconomy, smart, scalable solutions that work for people, the planet, and industry. It's hard to think of more relevant topics for forest management and forestry sectors as we seek to balance sustainable forest management against growing demand for forest products. Australia recognises the need and benefits for increasing the use of sustainably sourced forest products and supports a forest-based bioeconomy approach. Many aspects of the bioeconomy are synergistic with our national transition to a circular economy, driving sustainable consumption and production. Forest and wood products are central to a circular economy, and we need to look to innovate across the value chain to minimise waste and maximise value from the resources that we have. Of course, our commitment to sustainable forest management underpins these efforts, maintaining the values of forests environmentally, economically, and socially. As we move away from linear extractive models of production and consumption, we're all aware of the invaluable role that forests and forest products can play. Forest-based products can offer low emissions alternatives to carbon-intensive materials like plastics, concrete, and steel. Wood fibre in particular is a versatile and renewable input for a wide range of uses, from engineered timber to biomaterials and bioenergy. We also know that global demand for timber and fibre is set to grow. One of the clearest challenges we face is ensuring a reliable long-term fibre supply. Simply put, we need trees in the ground today to meet the fibre needs of tomorrow. Fibre security underpins a sustainable forest-based bioeconomy. Without it, we risk falling short on both environmental and economic outcomes. Internationally, There's a need for an increased emphasis on policies and programs that will ensure timber fibre sustainability and security. As pressure to grow the forest industry increases, we must do so in a way that's economically viable and environmentally sustainable to ensure that any increased demand for forest products doesn't lead to an increase in deforestation or forest degradation. This requires coordinated long-term investment in growing our resource base, strong partnerships, and a deep commitment to sustainable forest management. In Australia, the government's supporting the expansion of our plantation estate with a focus on long rotation softwood and hardwood plantation forests to increase sustainable wood supply that delivers valuable resources that our economy needs while sequestering carbon. And while increasing supply is key, so too is making the most of each and every part of our wood fibre resource. Innovation and technology are vital in unlocking future potential of fibre, reducing waste, and developing the next generation of climate-smart products. We've established a new research and development organisation, Australian Forest and Wood Innovations, to drive transformative research, development and innovation for our timber industry. We're also supporting investment in advanced wood processing technologies through our accelerated adoption of wood processing innovation program to both upgrade our existing manufacturing lines and to innovate and diversify our domestic production. These initiatives are supporting Australia's forest industries to innovate and improve the capacity and capability of our forestry sector. Given the forest industry is a long game, and in Australia, our forestry workforce is ageing, it's critical that young people are involved now, shaping the policy, research, and innovation that will guide their future. I'm especially pleased to have youth voices represented here today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing their voices in the discussion. In closing, I'd like to reiterate that as we work collectively to drive sustainable consumption and production, forest-based solutions will be essential. However, we know that pressure on resource availability and forest products is set to intensify. Meeting this challenge sustainably will depend on our ability to harness innovation across supply, processing, and product development. The decisions we make now will directly shape the availability of fibre in 10, 20, and 30 years to come. I look forward to today's discussion to explore how we can scale up innovation and strengthen our global commitment to ensuring forests continue to meet the needs of people and our planet. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Guy, for sharing those insights from Australia. I have to say, I particularly liked your statement, simply put, we need trees in the ground today to meet the fibre needs of tomorrow. I could see that on a sign or something. And I was also pleased to hear about Australia's investment in innovation through the new organisation, Australian Forest and Wood Innovations. That's great news. If there was a relevant link or something, maybe you could put it in the chat. That would be great. So yeah, that commitment to innovation is a perfect introduction to this webinar. So thank you. And yeah, from that, it gives us a perfect way to introduce our co-chair from New Zealand. So it's now my pleasure to move across the Tasman to introduce our next esteemed speaker, Olivia Sullivan. Olivia is the Director of Forestry Systems. Now, let me see how I go with this. Te Ururaku, New Zealand Forest Service Ministry for Primary Industries from the Government of New Zealand. Olivia, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. That was pretty good. Te Ururaku, New Zealand Forestry Service. So, thank you very much, and thank you to Guy. A pleasure to co-chair this session with Australia. In a future not far from here, we're going to see even a wider range of products being used from trees, and a shift from products that are currently still heavily reliant on fossil fuels. We're already witnessing exciting developments, whether they be glues, nutraceuticals, fuels, everyday items, alternatives to plastics. And webinars like this help us to shine a light on the opportunity we have, the innovations already underway, and the stories that we can share to work together to build a truly sustainable forest-based economy. To arrive at an equitable forest-based bioeconomy, we need more than just good intentions. We need to have smart policies, integrated global supply chains, key investment, and strong partnerships to accelerate this global shift. No single country has all the answers, and while some are further along the path, we all have a role to play in using our forests more wisely to support climate-positive societies. Each country's forestry landscape is unique. For New Zealand, we have a significant protected Indigenous estate alongside a thriving production forestry sector. Our production forests grow prolifically, and we have seen, strong afforestation in recent years. And for us, the challenge lies in capturing and using these resources as efficiently as we can, especially when geographically they are sometimes located far from processing facilities. For the New Zealand government at the moment, finding ways to add value to our forestry industry and grow our onshore wood processing sector is a key focus. This involves diversifying the products we produce and utilising as much of the tree as possible to achieve that. We're particularly excited in exploring the development of manufacturing clusters in different parts of New Zealand. These clusters allow traditional and emerging businesses to share fixed costs, foster symbiotic relationships across infrastructure, research and development, transport, and others, to name a few. Today's conversation is not just about technology. It's also about connecting supply chains and ensuring equitable participation, not only between countries, but within them. For many nations, this means ensuring that Indigenous communities can engage in culturally appropriate ways. This might include exploring the medicinal properties of native species and protecting these resources as part of a developing bioeconomy to prevent a green gold rush that could lead to deforestation and the erosion of traditional knowledge and land stewardship. And for New Zealand, this is a key focus. I'm especially excited that Florian from Scion, New Zealand's forest research agency, is joining us today and on the panel as one of the speakers. Florian plays a key role in New Zealand's bioeconomy journey and has recently been helping to establish a new science entity focused on this very area. I look forward to the breadth and diversity of today's panel discussion, and a big thank you to the FAO and the governments of Austria and Finland for making this webinar series possible, and for opening the floor to a wide range of perspectives from around the world. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Olivia, for those contributions. Listening to you, I really appreciate the comments you made about each country's forestry estate, excuse me, being unique. And I think that point will come up again over the course of today, because it highlights that need for innovation to be context appropriate. And I think that getting that message across is vital. And thanks also for that information about the manufacturing clusters and the symbiotic relationships between traditional and emerging businesses. I think that's something also that as the forest sector evolves and the the bioeconomy develops, one would think that's a model that might grow, and I'm sure we can all learn a lot more from yourself and New Zealand about that. So thank you, and I'm also looking forward to hearing more later in the webinar about New Zealand's commitment to the bioeconomy journey. So thanks a lot for those introductory comments, both Olivia and Guy. So it's now my pleasure to move on to our keynote presentations. And to begin with, I will introduce our speaker and my colleague, Ms. Thais Linares-Juvenal. Thais is the Senior Advisor for Governance, Economics and Production here in the Forestry Division at FAO. Thais will walk us through the global wood demand projections to 2050. I know this is something that many people are very interested in better understanding. And she's going to share with us how different supply sources contribute to the bioeconomy and explore the transformative potential of wood for construction. And she will set the stage for understanding the challenges and that we face and the opportunities ahead. Then we're going to do something a little different. So moving from those challenges and opportunities, with your kind permission, you will be hearing from me. So I am going to move from moderator to panelist and share a few minutes on innovation, which is the focus of my role here in FAO, that follows up from the perspective that you're about to hear from Thais. So Thais, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Lyndall. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's great to see such a large audience with us today. We are reaching 150 people. It means that forest-based bioeconomy is the topic of the moment. Thank you very much for being here with us, and good to see also a lot of familiar faces. So from challenge to opportunity, innovating forest supply for growing markets. This is the title of the presentation Lyndall and I prepared. And this presentation has two objectives. The first is to demonstrate that how we can guarantee sustainable wood supply to support the bioeconomy. And the second, highlighting the critical role of innovation at all levels in this process. So let's start. Next slide, please. So in 2022, FAO, in collaboration with the ITTO, launched the Global Forest Sector Outlook 2050. And with this publication, we had this very basic question. We are promoting wood in the bioeconomy. Will we have enough supply of wood? So that's the first step, was to estimate how much, what we're talking about in terms of volume. So we estimated 37% increase in demand for primary processed wood products in 2050 compared to 2020, an additional 31 billion cubic meters. And we also estimated that additional 200 million cubic meters of primary processed wood products would be needed to substitute for non-renewable materials. Next, please. So how can we meet this demand? And the very important thing here is, from an economic perspective, if the demand grows, you will usually adjust and find the supply to meet this demand. The key issue is how you will meet this demand. So how can we meet this demand, and how can we do this sustainably? So what are the potential sources of additional supply? Natural regenerated forests, in particular, increasing productivity, planted forests, increasing efficiency in management of planted and natural forests, use of other trees and new trees, and here the role of the lesser-known tree species, or lesser-known timber species, sorry, and the other trees, for instance, rubber trees that we know have also good quality wood quality. Planting more trees in the landscape, so trees outside forests, agroforestry. But in addition to the physical availability of trees, we do need also to increase efficiency in the processing side. So it's not only about the harvesting, it's not all about the silvicultural treatments, but it's also about increasing efficiency in the processing side, more production per cubic meter, reducing and reusing waste, and applying the principles of cascading use. Next, please. It's also important to bear in mind that we need a combination of production systems if you really want to be sustainable. So we should, one of the key findings of this publication is that we could need 33 million hectares of new plantation forests, high-intensive plantation forests. But is this the future we want? I don't believe so. What we want is something that is more biodiverse, is something that is inclusive, is something that generates, has a larger impact on sustainable development, in particular in the rural areas where we have the highest rates of poverty. So we need to work through a combination of production systems, and we can work through a combination of production systems. So here we list, the sustainable forest management, planted forests, forest plantations, agroforestry, tree farming, but also building on key forest objectives and key policies that can drive, that can have synergies and can, in coherence, increase this timber supply. So I list here restoration, afforestation, fast-growing trees, mixed species, optimized plantation design. So here, what I'm trying to say is that it's not only about the production systems, but it's also how we're going to implement these production systems and how we're going to build on these different process and these different opportunities that we have to build this mosaic for sustainable wood supply. So we need enabling environment, policy and finance, continuous research, innovation and deployment on genetics and breeding techniques and silvicultural treatments, improving of processing technology, so work with a bigger variety of trees. And this is very critical because we always talk about increasing biodiversity, using lesser open markets for lesser known timber species, we want more biodiverse planted forests, but this works not only as a matter of market, there is also the need of the technology in the processing site to be able to process a more biodiverse wood production. And of course, through innovative products. Next, please. I also wanted to give you a bit of a sense on what are the trends on planted forests, So planted forests now respond for almost 50% of the forest production in the world, meaning that, and we know that the biggest increase in wood supply will come from planted forests. We know also that globally, plantations represent 45% of planted forests in 2020. And in regions like South America and Oceania, they responded for 99% and 91% respectively, meaning that in these regions, planted forests have advanced through plantations. We also know that Asia was the region with the highest increase in planted forest area in 2010-2020. But we also know that South Africa is the region with, South America, sorry, is the region with the highest rate of area growth, meaning that Asia has grows larger, South America grows faster. But Africa is emerging as an important plantation area as well. So with this picture, what we're showing is that the biggest growth in planted forests will be in the tropics. In 2020, agroforestry and tree crop production over 45.4 million hectares generated wood for commercial purpose. And this is a trend that it's important to explore how we can make agroforestry contribute to this process, how we can increase efficiency and connect agroforestry producers to the markets. And Asia reported the largest area under agroforestry systems at 31.2 million hectares, followed by Africa with 12.8 million hectares. Next, please. So it's still as part of the conclusions from the Global Forest Sector Outlook 2050, we understand that there is potential to grow timber and fiber production from modern agroforestry systems and trees outside forests. There is a rising competition for agricultural land, and increasing land prices make agroforestry and silvipastoral systems more attractive. And that fuel wood woodlots of fast-growing trees are critical to meet the additional wood fuel demand in sub-Saharan Africa. So there is a possibility, in addition to this modern bioeconomy, and there's also an avenue there to supply, to support this demand for fuel wood, in particular in sub-Saharan Africa. Next, please. So what we have been doing to support this process? We have been producing evidence to support sustainable wood in the bioeconomy. FAO, through its regular program and through the other initiatives and collaboration with different organizations, in particular through the Sustainable Wood for a Sustainable World, the SW4SW that FAO has the honor to lead together with ITTO. My colleague Sham Satikuro is going to speak after me. And we are contributing to assess and develop sustainable wood supply to support the bioeconomy. So we produced this Global Forest Sector Outlook 2050 with ITTO, as I mentioned. We also produced these pathways to assess these pathways to increase sustainable, increase supply from planted forests and trees, which was a collaboration with CIHAD. We finalized this study this year. We also made an assessment of wood product value chain assessment in Tanzania with the Forest and Farm Facility to also explore how to engage smallholders or producer organizations in this value chain. And we also produce an assessment of smallholder tree farming for wood production in Asia Pacific, exploring these universe also of agroforestry that is very important in the region on how we can support this wood supply. We have also, we are working on a forestry outlook study 2030-2050 with the IASA. FAO and IASA are producing this. This is coming soon. And this will explore also the impact of increased wood supply on the landscape and the competition among across the different land uses and food production, carbon conservation, etc. And we also produce in a forest product demand and supply in a bioeconomy transition in collaboration, FAO in collaboration with Bauhauser and Ontario Limited, which is a study that is part of FRA 2025 special studies. Next, please. So this is for me the most important thing related to this presentation. When I say that we need to combine different production systems with the reality also of the challenge that we face and that the forest sector can respond to. So the key one is climate change, the climate emergency in connection with halting deforestation. We know that those are the key issues together with ecosystem restoration and tackling biodiversity loss. So anything we discuss about wood supply needs to take into consideration and needs to build on the policies and the strategies to address these problems. Of course, then we need to work with sustainable forest management. We need to halt illegal logging and production. We can only have sustainable wood supply. It's not only the positive side. We need also to ensure that there will be no more illegal wood in the market. And that's the way we can support the bioeconomy. So the adoption of an integrated approach can lead us to a sustainable resource base to support forest-based approach to the bioeconomy. Next, please. But we do need innovation for that. So please, Linda, you have the floor.
Thanks a lot, Thais.
Thanks a lot.
That was a fantastic presentation. And as you said, we have a great audience here, which really highlights the interest in this topic. And I think those points you've just shared with us around what the trends are looking like around supply and demand. To me, there's almost no hotter topic for the sector as we look to or in particular transition to a forest-based bioeconomy. And I guess the enabler around that is innovation. And it's, you know, you picked up on many topics in that presentation, Thais, around products, the need for an integrated approach, picked up on tropical forests and the importance that they will play. And it is innovation that's going to enable us to make this transition in a sustainable way. Next slide, please. So I am going to have to be relatively brief. Of course, innovation is a dynamic, interesting, broad topic. So I really am going to, it will be a fairly light touch this morning. But, innovation is doing something new and different. It doesn't have to be completely new to the world everywhere. It can be solving an old problem in a new way, addressing a new problem with a proven solution, or bringing a new solution to a new problem. It might be that the innovation is quite well known in one context, but is perhaps taken to another context and adapted specifically for that area. We're also perhaps most familiar with technological and product type innovation, and that's where our minds go when we think of innovations. But innovations, there's a whole typology of innovation that exists, and you can see on the screen there, ranging from technological, but also, with items that you'd be well familiar with, CLT, LVL, digital monitoring innovations, etc. But those other ones are equally important: social, policy, institutional, financial. And none of these innovations occur sort of in isolation. You might see that a technological innovation is reliant or has been enabled through a policy innovation, for example. And of course, I think we'd all understand the importance of finance, and particularly as we transition to a forest-based bioeconomy, the financial innovation that will be essential, and we heard about that in our last webinar, if we're going to achieve the sort of outcomes and new products, approaches, forest development that Thais has just touched on. And finally, this must occur within an ecosystem. And I think we've heard from both our co-chairs this morning the sort of efforts that countries like Australia and New Zealand are putting in to ensure that the innovation ecosystem is strong and robust and resilient to enable the development of innovations. So it begs the question of how we're going to scale this up so that we can sort of reach the ideals of a forest-based bioeconomy that I know that we're all interested in. Next slide, please. I'm not going to laboriously go through the whole forest product supply chain, except the intention of this slide is to highlight the breadth of opportunities that exist in the forest product supply chain. I think we're all aware of, I guess, the dynamic state that the forest product supply chain exists in, and we would hope that innovation and sort of the operations that take place within the forest sector are sort of in a continuous state of improvement, evolution, and supported by those new innovations. And I just want to now very quickly go through. I'd love to go to the next slide, please. I'd really love to talk more deeply about any of these innovations. They're all exciting, but really the point of these next few slides is to highlight the breadth, the dynamism of our sector and variety of innovations that we have seen to date that have enabled the sector to be in the position that it's in now, and produce the breadth of products that I touched on in my opening remarks. So there on the screen, you can see a nice suite of technological innovations. Next slide, please. But as I said, the other types of innovations in the typology are equally important. So we see, community-based forest management, incubators, and the role of the integration of youth that Guy in particular touched on. Next slide, please. And of course, financial innovations. Again, we had a whole webinar on this, and I think we could have the whole summit on financial innovations because of the essential nature of them to support innovation. Other innovations, but the financial innovations that we also see taking place. Next slide, please. And of course, policy and institutional innovations. In some ways, you know, because they're perhaps not as tangible as a product or technological innovation, you know, perhaps they're not always as well known, but they really are the basis and the enabler that has allowed the breadth of innovations that I've just touched on. And if you'd like to go to the next slide, please. I think in particular, it's worth highlighting this point that we're really seeing, including through the COLI focused on sustainable forest-based bioeconomy approaches, we're really seeing this step up in policy-related support and then the related innovation with that. That's really, you know, because there is this recognition of the role of forest products in a sustainable bioeconomy, but I think in particular the increased use of wood. So, I mean, that's just a smattering of items on the screen there, but there's of course many other initiatives going on to support that. Next slide, please. Thais has really touched upon this, but you know, even though we can, as a sector, I think, be particularly proud of the incredible breadth of innovation that has taken place, we do have this challenge ahead of us that, you know, Thais has touched on, and the innovation certainly can't stop, and if it needs to scale up. And you can see on the slide there that there's some particular areas that you know, will continue to need enhanced focus. But this is in the face of, I think it's probably fair to say, increased challenges. And this, you know, as I said in my opening remarks, particularly this sort of theme of trade-offs. And so there's, you know, a range of areas that we need to be cognizant of, understand, if we are going to sort of be successful in our efforts to scale up innovation. You know, these include a lack of innovation knowledge and culture, risk appetite, finance and capital limitations, the impact of unsupportive or restrictive policies and regulations, as well as, of course, you know, a really big one, that land availability piece. Next slide, please. And I just want to make this point. I mean, I'd love to talk more about this because I think this is so incredibly important for our sector to think about. You know, Thais picked up on the role that tropical forests might or will increasingly play, and the expansion perhaps of the plantation estate there. You know, she also touched on what the scenario looks for sub-Saharan Africa. And I think it's just really, and actually it also came up in Olivia's points around, you know, the New Zealand forest sector is a particular context. And so I just want to really highlight this point that when we think about innovation, it's not a one size fits all. And in particular, it needs to be responsible and inclusive and really take care and the time to understand the context within which we're working within, because otherwise, the innovation that we're trying to develop and see adopted and scaled up just won't be successful. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of a promotional piece here, because I do want to highlight that FAO is actively working on and investing in innovation right from the highest levels of the organisation. So we see a lot of corporate level work on innovation and the integration of it as an enabler to support the organisation's strategic framework. But then within the forestry division, we have a relatively new roadmap that was endorsed at the last Committee on Forestry, and it has a whole objective focused on innovation. So certainly within this organisation, there's a recognition of its role in order for us to meet the ambitions broadly there around scaling up science and evidence-based innovation for agri-food systems transformation. But of course, within that, the role of the bioeconomy certainly sits. Next slide, please. And for those of you that want to learn more, the last State of the World's Forest report was focused on innovation. So there's a lot more information in there than I've been able to share with you today. So I encourage, if you're interested, encourage you to have a look. There's case studies and a bit of a deeper dive on innovation in the forest sector. Next slide, please. And within that document, look, I'm not going to go through these with any depth, but it does touch on and identifies, I should say, 5 enabling actions that through that process, I sort of brought out where we think the effort should be placed in order to really enable and catalyze the breadth of innovation that we've highlighted sort of needs to take place. And next slide. And just finally, I guess in recognition of that, as might be obvious from my title, that when I introduced myself, Foul Forestry now has developed this global forest sector innovation program. You can see it closely has learnt, I guess, from the findings of SOFO. And to complement that, also working with IUFRO, who's a partner on the COLI, on a task force on scaling up science-based forest sector innovation. So hopefully you continue to see more work, more effort, more guidance, better understanding of innovation in the forest sector. And so with that, I thank you. So I will put my moderating hat back on now. Hopefully the presentations from Thais and I are a good segue for you through to the next section of our webinar. So we're going to launch another quick poll. Let me just get that for you now. Can everyone see that poll now? So, oh, hang on, I don't think you can. Hang on, I think I have to. That's not right. There we go. Can you see that now? Yes, okay, I can see some results coming in, so you can see that. So yeah, I guess on the back of those presentations and those introductory remarks from our co-chairs, keen to hear from you about where you see the biggest opportunities for innovation for the forest sector, particularly in this sort of outlook of growing demand. Interesting, the interest in circular economy. Fascinating. So nearly 70% of you think circular economy is where our greatest opportunities lie. That's a fantastic and fascinating result. And then around 45% then around forest product processing. Interesting to see how these results will come out in our panel presentations. I think those, I know I've still got a few people clicking answers there. Give you a few more, about 30 more seconds. Okay, all right. You couldn't see those results coming in, but I could, so there you go. As I said, it's very clear the interest in the circular economy, really followed then by forest product processing and almost an even split there between AI and biotechnology. So thank you to all for that. That's really fascinating and really useful. As I said, in my opening remarks, the outcomes from these webinars will feed into the development of the summit in February. So this is extremely interesting. Thank you very much. Okay. So moving on. I'm really looking forward to this next really dynamic part of our webinar today. So we now have I have the absolute pleasure to welcome our distinguished group of experts that will join us for a panel. Their expertise is diverse and global. So we'll hear insights around innovation and technology improvements, the role of value optimization, sustainable production, and the importance of youth. And in the previous webinars, we've had many calls for a greater representation of the youth perspective. So I'm thrilled that we are bringing that to you today. You know, it's a shame that you sort of think you have quite a long time in an hour 45, but the topics that we will cover today are something we could spend, well, at least a whole summit on. So I am looking forward to what we hear over the next 55 minutes. But please feel free to put your comments in the chat and also add any questions that you have to the Q&A. So the 4 speakers that I have with us today are Shyam Satguru, who's the Executive Director at the International Tropical Timber Organisation, Vainu Vigulu, who's the Dean of the Solomon Islands National University, Peace Idam, who's representing both the International Forestry Students Association, as well as being Deputy Coordinator of the research group Rural Governance and Forest Tenure in Tropics at IUFRO, and finally Florian Greichen, who's the Chief Operating Officer at Scion in New Zealand. Audiovisual, could you put the 4 speakers up on the screen, please? I can't see them. Go, there's Florian. We should be able to. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going while audio-visual. Oh, there we go. You're coming up now. This is good. Okay. So to kick things off, I'd like each of you to please introduce yourself, and if you could share with the audience what your role or involvement is in forest-based supply chains, that would be great. And I'm going to start with Shyam. Can you please kick us off, Shyam?
Thank you very much, Lyndall, for that very, very cute introduction. And it's wonderful to be amongst several familiar colleagues. So thank you for having us on this panel. My name is Shyam Satguru, Executive Director of the ITTO since November 2021. And as you know, ITTO has a dual mandate of implementation of sustainable forest management in their member countries, as well as the diversification of trade in forest and non-wood products. My role in all this spans 30 years of experience in the forestry sector and also private sector and industry. So I hope that our insights would be useful for the panel and for the audience. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Shyam. Vainu, over to you. You could introduce yourself and give us some insights into your little bit of your background and interest in this area.
Thank you very much, Lyndall. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lyndall. Good evening, good morning, and good day to our online audience. My name is Vainu Vigulu, currently the Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture, Fisheries, Forestry, and Environment at Solomon Island National University here in Solomon Islands. Actually, I have a 15 years experience in managing a certified commercial plantation forestry project in Solomon Islands, which owns around 40,000 hectares planted with medium and hardwood commercial species. The company actually does harvesting round logs, downstream processing, exporting round logs, sawn timber, and added value products. I also had a 9 years work experience with the Solomon Islands government as permanent secretary and dealing mostly with policies, regulations, and legislations to ensure that all these instruments are updated and save the industry, including plantations, downstream processing, and restoration activities. Providing a conducive business environment is needed and provided to support the private sector as the engine for the national economy, policies to provide sustainable wood supply and not illegally harvested to support the forest bioeconomy. Now, as the Dean, my role is to ensure that the academic institutions teach and transfer knowledge backed by innovations that are science-based with indigenous and traditional knowledge. My contribution in the academic institutions are train graduates to continue managing production, natural forests, and manage protected forests. Also to continue establishing and managing planted forest, agroforestry, and mixed plantation forests. Also to train graduates to join the industry to produce added value products. Also to train graduates to join the government enforcement and monitoring the industry and management of the forest resources. Finally, to train graduates to do awareness on policies, regulations, and legislation that will promote forest bioeconomy in Solomon Islands. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bino, and I'm thrilled to have you here, particularly as I picked up earlier. You know, we've had a strong call for youth representation in these webinars, and you offer this great bridge between your deep and broad experience, and then now working with young people at the university. So this is fantastic, and that brings me to Peace. Peace, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Linda. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I feel very privileged to be here among experts that have tons of knowledge in the topic. My name is Ngozi. I'm from Nigeria. My background is in forestry and environmental management, and I just completed my master's in European forestry. With my thesis focusing on the bioeconomy strategy, so where I looked at the bioeconomy strategy of South Africa and Costa Rica. So I would say the issue of bioeconomy has been new to me for 2 years. And while I'm interested in bioeconomy, I'm most especially interested in how youth, young people, indigenous community, women are part of this process. Because I remember one of the co-chair talked about how, and also the presentation talked about when we do innovation, we have losers and winners. So it's also good that different perspectives are integrated in the bioeconomy transition. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Peace. And whilst you might be our youth representative, I know your knowledge is deep and that the breadth of perspectives that you bring are really vital. So thanks for joining us here today. And finally, for introductions, Florian.
Thank you very much for having me on this call. I'm Chief Operating Officer at SCION. We are New Zealand's Crown Research Institute for Forestry, Industrial Biotech and Advanced Manufacturing. Interestingly, from Tuesday onwards, we will be part of the Bioeconomy Science Institute. So this will bring together one of the largest globally holistic bioeconomy-focused institutes, anything from aquaculture, forestry, horticulture, viticulture, but also all the advanced technologies, clean tech, climate tech, biotech, circular economy, all coming together, driving bioeconomy. My role sits at the intersection of science, strategy, and impact. From the value chain, or what we refer to as value webs, because what we're looking here is systems thinking, is everything from management, planting of forests, to advanced wood products, can be innovative construction, to application of advanced technologies for high-value bioproducts, for biorefining technologies. For New Zealand, forestry is absolutely key. The New Zealand ability to grow sustainable biomass, and that's the basis of anything we talk about here, is fantastic. And combining that with cutting-edge science, with biotech, with biomanufacturing, with synthetic biology, that's a massive opportunity. Very, very important for us, for New Zealand, transformation is not just about economic growth. It is about resilience, it's about communities, it's about regions, about rural, and in our context, very, very important for Maori and Indigenous communities. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Florian. Yeah, the breadth of innovations that SCION and now the new institute will be working on is really inspirational and impressive. So thank you. So now let's move to our more applied questions for the panel. Sham, back to you. So we're going to start with if you could sort of respond to this question for us. So ITTO represents about 90% of the global timber trade and 80% of the world's tropical forests. Correct me if I don't have those statistics right. We're good. Okay. So this gives you really this unique vantage point bridging producer and consumer countries. And I think, you've shared, I think, widely that there is some underinvestment in tropical forests while simultaneously advocating for the need for sustainable production and consumption. So where do you therefore see the most need for investment and innovation in forest product supply chains in the tropical countries that you represent?
Thank you, Lyndall, for that very pointed question. And in the guidance notes, we were told that we have 1 minute for self-introduction. So I kind of lost out a little bit on explaining what the ITTO is all about, as I kept my intervention to under 1 minute, I think.
You're welcome to elaborate.
Not too much. So you were right, Linda. So I wish to also thank the co-chairs for having the patience to listen to us and allow this panel to actually give our different perspectives on the different topics that have been touched upon today. So I wanted to thank the generous donors from Austria and Finland also for making it possible for us to share our insights in the hope that what we share with the wider community would increase the understanding of the complexities in the forestry sector and where the forestry sector could really ramp up their efforts, not just in tropical countries, but around the world, actually, right? Now, of course, the questions that you asked were pointed to tropical member countries. Now, we have 37 members under the ITTO. When we talk about innovations, whether technical or scientific or financial, there's a lot of room, of course, for innovations to be adopted and to be shared with tropical countries. But at the same time, many of our member countries have adopted some of these innovative methods, either in processing or in sustainable forest management or in looking at how they can establish additional resources for the forestry sector. But many have adopted them at different levels. So I thank both you and Thais for both your papers, because as you know, thank you also for acknowledging that ITTO has worked very closely with the FAO in looking at the state of the world forest, the forestry outlook for 2024, the FRA assessments also, and through all that, what we have seen and what we have experienced at the ITTO, at least for the last 39 years of ITTO's existence, is the adoption and implementation of these innovative mechanisms. A lot of it depends on the ability of the countries, the affordability also, because innovation never comes free, unfortunately, and also the capacity for implementation, meaning human and financial resources again. So the major needs that we see at this stage is the first base is always the implementation of sustainable forest management. So even in our 37 members of the ITTO, there are far more tropical countries who sit outside the membership of the ITTO. The levels of advancement and the levels of achievement vary greatly. They vary greatly because it just depends on whether they have been capable of implementing changes. And what we see is the varying levels of innovation has to be applied depending on the levels of advancement a particular country has reached, right? Now, with that, of course, comes the implementation of sustainable forest management. That is the first base. It is the first base in order to ensure innovation or contribution to the bioeconomy, or to move into optimization of resources, exports, trade, whether regional or whether international or whether even national level. So all this are interrelated. And what we see, it needs significant investments, and both you and Thais talked about financing and investment. And what I feel is that the incentives are almost equally important as the investment. They need fiscal and non-fiscal incentives. So this can be in the form of tax rebates or tax incentives even, or tax exemption even. So there are many different ways of looking at this. And the major needs, of course, in addition to the first base of sustainable forest management, would be capacity building, training, and sustainable finance. And I don't mean that the sustainable finance needs to come only from donor countries. We are now in the year 2025. The international scenario is looking terribly uncertain. So in my humble view, the governments of tropical countries also need to pitch in and invest in their own forest resources. Many have done so. I will not mention countries in any country in particular, because in order to be fair to our membership, we know many have innovated, many have invested in their forestry sector, and this has spanned more than 50 years of investment. Although the others are now coming, they're coming because they know that their forestry resources are so important, not just to the country, but also to their people. Where ITTO is concerned, what we advocate for amongst our member countries, and many are actually adopting this, it all needs to be balanced. It's not just environmental protection, we also need to look at socio-economic needs. And this is the only way in which we can pursue and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. Right? So in terms of forest product supply chains, many in tropical countries, they need to commit to mainstreaming legal and sustainable supply chains for tropical wood products, and also adopt and adapt to sustainable production, consumption, and trade. So this is what we are doing in terms of the activities that we are conducting. As you correctly pointed out, Linda, the ITTO is a perfect example of international collaboration between consuming countries and between producing countries. So there's a mutual respect and a mutual need to support each other in how they do these things, right? And we also encourage our membership to support the use of new diagnostic tools and methodologies. In other words, we need to catalyze and support legal and forest policy reforms in order to implement SFM properly. We're also advocating the utilization of high resolution satellite imagery, GIS, and remote sensing to identify the key areas that need assistance, or key countries, key regions that need assistance. We already have a very good idea of that, but we want our member countries to come on board together with us on doing these things, right? We also need to increase the uptake of digital technologies to improve the efficiency of timber tracking and traceability. I think in the second webinar series, there was a very good example from one of our member countries, Guatemala, that presented a paper on how the ITTO supported project was so successful. So that's also been implemented in Panama. And we are actually looking right now for international support to implement that across the region or across other members who are interested in doing so. There are different ways of tracking and traceability. Of course, we have the forest certification schemes. We also have the legality assurance system. So they can all be converged into becoming a globally adaptable and acceptable chain. But we need everybody to be on board. The utilization of lesser known species is another one, to reduce the pressure on the commercial species. And we are fully with you. We are fully with the FAO and with the co-chairs in what they said in their introductory remarks, that we do need to innovate, we need to optimize, and we need to recognize plantations as a very good supplement to reduce the pressure on natural forests. We're fully with you on that. And many of our member countries are already in that process of identifying areas, not at the expense of natural forests, though, I must say. If they want to establish plantations, they're free to do that under their own government policies, but it must not be at the expense of their own natural forests. Maybe I should stop there. Oh, one last thing, clearly important, youth-driven innovation. ITTO has supported youth involvement for many, many years. Example, the ITTO Fellowship Program. That's currently open, by the way, so please spread the word amongst the youth. It's up on our website, for either mid-professionals or for tertiary education or for masters and PhDs. So we've supported this for more than 35 years, and we intend to keep it going. And we thank our donor countries and also the government of Japan for the generosity of hosting us and putting up with us and our activities and our achievements. Thank you. I'll stop there for now. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Sham. I mean, that was so fantastic, and there were so many elements to what you just shared with us, and so many things to sort of reflect on. But I'm not going to do a full summary of what you said, but I do really like this theme of the sort of old and the new. That we may want and need to bring in sort of cutting edge say, monitoring technologies, but as I touched on earlier, but other ways of doing things or improvements may be a lot more sort of at the more basic level. So I think that's it's really fascinating of how we sort of move forward with with where we're at, as you say, in 2025. And it's now my pleasure to hand over to you, Vino, who's, I'm really excited to hear from you to give us this really applied perspective on the sort of topics and sort of things that I'm sure there's many things that Sham touched on that you could respond to. But from the Solomon Islands, if you could share with us, Solomon Islands is one of the world's biggest roundwood exporters. And you shared with us in your introduction the range of roles that you've had in government, in private sector, and now with the university. So could you give us some sort of your insights on what you think the key opportunities are within the Solomon Islands from that really applied country level perspective, within the Solomon Islands forest-based value chain that could be leveraged to enable greater local value addition to forest products? Over to you, Vino, for your perspectives.
Thank you again, Linda, and the co-chairs, and thank you, our online audience, for listening. Before I go into my contribution, be aware that Solomon Islands is an island country in the Pacific Ocean with around 1,000 islands. Solomon Islands is isolated from the main forest products market, that is Asia and China. Our national economy depends heavily on round log export as the most demandable forest product. And as Lyndall mentioned, around 2.3 million cubic meters of round logs exported annually, but is reducing currently in terms of volume and size. Against that backdrop, I will go straight to my contributions in addressing forest bioeconomy in Solomon Islands and the region. The Solomon Islands forest-based value chain presents several opportunities for local value addition and supporting the forest bioeconomy, including 1, expanding plantation timber forestry. This is increasing domestic processing and value-added production that can help sustain the sector and create more job opportunities. We have in the Solomon Islands an organization which is funded by Australian government, which is Strong in Business program. This is supporting timber businesses to tap into the local timber market for value-added plantation timber. So we have that funding and support from Australian government. Second is to improving downstream processing, enhancing processing capabilities that can increase the value of timber exports. Initiatives like establishing a local timber treatment plant can help meet local timber and reduce import costs. We now starting to look into treatment plants that can make some products available locally, but also in the region as well. Although this is more an environmental hazard thing, we're looking into establishing a proper one to save our country and the region as well. The third point is developing value-added products. This is creating new product opportunities, such as furniture production, which is currently ongoing in the country, which can reduce reliance on costly imports and boost market growth for value-added products. Creating partnerships like the one between Strong in Business and Australian government-funded funding with our local tropical group builders that advance downstream processing in the timber industry in Solomon Islands. So this is a good example of developing value-added products in the forest bioeconomy in Solomon Islands. The other point that I want to say is strengthening smallholder timber supply chains. This is collaborating with landowners that can improve their timber harvesting, processing, and selling capabilities, enhancing market access across all 9 provinces. So Solomon Islands consists of 1,000 islands, 9 provinces, and it's really difficult to manage forest and movement of forest products across our isolated islands, and especially we are far from the main market in the Asian region. Next point is promoting sustainable forest management. implementing sustainable forest management practices, such as Forest Stewardship Council certification that can increase the value of forest products and provide better market access. In Solomon Islands, we only have 2 certified plantations, commercial plantations, which is owned by a Korean company and a Taiwanese company. The Korean company now has decertified itself, so we only have 1 FSC certified plantation and FSC certified forest products that are currently being sold in the certified markets. Next point I want to share is also increasing value-added exports. This is strengthening the value chain that can enable Solomon Islands to export high-value timber products, such as sawn timber, to countries like Australia and New Zealand. Currently, Australia and New Zealand are our niche market with high-value timber. Although with strict regulations, we try to meet that to enter, because we count that Australia and New Zealand market as our niche market. So we supply timber there currently. Finally, on that is creating employment opportunities, which is increasing local value addition that can create more job opportunities, especially for women, youth, and people with disabilities in the processing sector that support the bioeconomy in our contribution for our national economy here. To leverage these opportunities, it is essential to improve our infrastructure, which is we need to invest in infrastructure such as roads, storage facilities that can help reduce transportation costs and increase market access. Second point is providing training and capacity building, which is now one of my main tasks here at our local national university, training programs that can enhance the skills of smallholder farmers and timber processors, enabling them to meet international quality standards. So we need graduates that can take up such job that can assist in the industry. Third point is support private sector development, collaborating with private sector companies that can provide access to markets, technology, innovations, and finance, helping to drive growth in the forest sector in Solomon Islands and therefore the forest bioeconomy as well. And finally, develop policies and regulations which are effective and can support sustainable forest management and value-added production and innovations, ensuring the long-term sustainability of the forest sector in developing and supporting the forest bioeconomy approach in Solomon Islands. So these are the points that I want to share, and that's happening in Solomon Islands. Although we've done much, there's a lot more to be done and to liaise with our development partners. And especially, I have discussed with ITTO executive in 2018, 2019, trying to get Solomon Islands to be a member. However, I moved across to an academic institution, and I will encourage the government to be a member and comply to the sustainable forest management principles ITTO actually upholds. Thank you, Lyndall, and thank you all for giving your time to listen to my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vino. And again, just so much rich information in there to give us a real taste, I guess, of the challenges, but of course also the opportunities that a country that's remote and dispersed that Solomon Islands faces. It's I think quite different to many places in the world, particularly places with sort of established forest sectors. So it is really a perfect segue into Peace Ngozi's intervention. Vino picked up on Peace, the role of smallholders, as I said, the dispersed geography, the need for improved infrastructure, but also the role of women and youth. So I guess moving on from those perspectives, could you share with us how you think we can better bridge the gap between academic research and practical implementation, particularly in the Global South, while also ensuring that the youth are appropriately involved?
Thank you so much. I'll start with saying what Florine mentioned about the bioeconomy needing a system thinking approach. And I would also include in that a very inclusive approach. So a lot of people have said things about partnership between academia and local communities and young people. And the co-chair from New Zealand also mentioned that forest bioeconomy differs across country. And when you look at the bioeconomy strategies, you would also see that, especially bioeconomy strategies from the Global South and Global North, you see their focus. So I would say, to bridge the gap, we really need to connect bioeconomy research to solving local or national problems. In Global South, there might be need to focus on medicinal plants. There might be need to look at bioeconomy, the solve issue of using clean fuel cooking, especially when we look at how firewood, it's also like a huge problem for women. We might look at how do we connect bioeconomy to solve the youth unemployment in the Global South. So we don't need to really focus only on biomass. Like I said, we need to do research that really provide a solution, a forest-based bioeconomy solution that address local needs. That's a way of bridging the gap. I grew up in the Global South, and I did my master's in Finland and Germany, and they are very top in bioeconomy. But our approach doesn't need to look like what bioeconomy looks, right? So when we don't understand this dichotomy, right, we kind of really think like this is what bioeconomy should look at. And it's for young people in the Global South that are really doing a lot of solutions. They need to really be supported. In Finland, I know that there is an initiative where students in University of Eastern Finland kind of pitch their research, their forest-based bioeconomy research to funders to receive funding to scale it up, right? We don't see a lot of that in the Global South, and this is what young people would want. We want a research, not just doing research just to publish paper. We want research on forest-based bioeconomy that solves a local problem. And then when they design this research, we want to see funding, we want to see mentorship, we want to see scaling up this idea. In Europe, we have the European University Bioeconomy Alliance, where students who are interested in bioeconomy, young people who are interested in bioeconomy, to do discuss and come up with an ideas. We don't have that in the Global South, right? We don't have a lot of universities in the Global South doing like a core course in bioeconomy. And we've seen that there is a huge prospect in the tropical forest. So we need to really connect to that. We need to do research, and we need support. So I would say bridging the gap requires a lot of bringing together these different perspectives. It requires developing research that's forest-based bioeconomy research that solves community problem. That's a way of bridging this gap. And it might not really only be on biomass. It might be on a lot of other non-forest timber products like medicinal plants, like creating solutions that solve local challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Peace. I mean, the richness of your experience from the Global South and the Global North just really shines through there. It's really much appreciated. And I think much of what you said just then will be music to the ears of many people that were listening. These themes of it's more than just biomass, that it is the whole suite of products that we need to be thinking about is absolutely essential and really correct. And I'm really glad that you shone a light on that point. So my sincere thanks for that. And we're now going to move on and have Florian's perspective, which really sort of goes, well, from one extreme to the other, to really focus on the most advanced sort of innovations that we're seeing taking place. So Florian, I'd love to hear from you about where you see the most promising areas for AI and advanced processing technologies to support the development of the sustainable forest-based bioeconomy. And if you could just give us some insights as to why why you think they are the most sort of important areas, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it fits pretty well to speak after the youth perspective, because that is what we've seen a lot, what we benefit from summer students or other high school students coming in, they are coming with amazing ideas and advanced technologies. So if I take AI, advanced processing, as you've suggested, they are not only enablers for the bioeconomy, they are absolute critical accelerators for transformation. And I thought about it, and I want to use 3 examples, and they're all largely driven by younger staff. And I think that shows how important it is to bring young people in. So that's precision forestry, carbon accounting is one. Second one, advanced bioproducts, advanced materials. And the third one, integral or holistic land use and ecosystem modeling. So all very diverse, but I think it's important in that context. So around precision forestry, carbon accounting. So if you look at AI-powered remote sensing, so using satellite imagery, using LiDAR, using drones, you combine that with learning algorithms, you absolutely revolutionize how you manage forests. These tools, you've got real-time catchment, scale insights. You know nearly every tree intimately. You've got growth rates, you've got biodiversity, and that's absolutely critical if you want to do accurate carbon accounting. You don't want to do just laborious field surveys. Forest planning, like digital twins. You can plan your forest right from the start, given what catchment, what future climate conditions would you have, absolutely critical. And the last one, coming back to the theme of indigenous, monitoring of indigenous forests. So really align that with climate goals, align it with values. So that position is absolutely critical for New Zealand in terms of our reduction targets, in terms of our strength in the global carbon market. One area I'm personally really excited about to see the progress now is in advanced bioproducts and in materials. And here we can see this interface of AI, of synthetic biology that is unlocking frontiers in bioplastics, biochemicals. We talked about, or you mentioned circular principles, really embedding that right from the start. Is a very quick way or very, very efficient way to move away from fossil-based materials. And where we are using at Scion at the moment, we use AI to accelerate material discovery. So you can simulate molecular interactions in materials. You know what they can do. Infrastructure, we talked about digital twins for forestry. We do digital twins now for innovative processing infrastructure to match the feedstock supply with the process technology. Market foresighting. We all learned about disruption of supply chains, but it's so critical now to know, to simulate market conditions and systems. And for New Zealand, at the start or at the end of long supply chains, these technologies are really critical. And the last one, and that's very often overlooked, is in the area of ecological systems and quantum computing, AI, that offers an unmatched potential to really understand complex biological systems, complex ecological systems. And where we see that really, really important, we talked about that importance of the ecosystem. And so if you want to balance forestry with commercial forestry, with biodiversity, maybe with water, with air quality goals, you have a highly complex system if you want to measure that. Climate change, you can now see climate change impacting regions. You don't have to wait 50 years. You can see it within 5 years. So designing climate and climate resilient landscapes where forestry has a massive role to play is really important. And we also mentioned at the start policy. and it's very hard to understand what policy regulations might cause. And we've started with universities to do how can AI support policy setting and investment setting, and how can you predict the outcome of that? So if you put all of these things together, I think you can see that that is not just an enabler, it is absolutely essential for that transformation.
Thank you, Florian. Again, so much in there, and that really forward-looking view of how we use the most cutting edge of technology and thinking, and sort of bringing that creative thinking, I think, with those technologies such as AI, I think is incredibly interesting and important for our sector. I want to go back to just some of what you said sort of in the last piece of that fascinating answer and information that you shared around holistic land use and the importance of the ecosystem and the need to balance the blend of needs. Unfortunately, our time is running tight, so I think we only have time for one question. I can see Jane's comment in the chat there about, wow, keep talking. So Jane, I'm going to ask people to talk just a little bit more, and if I can ask our speakers to keep your answers to the question that I'm going to ask brief, although I know it's a big ask because it's quite a complex question. However, we have a question in the chat that I think is fascinating and a nice way to close us out. And the question and the comment is this: Brazil will place the socio-bioeconomy at the core of the climate COP30. For forests and forest products to play fully their positive role for climate mitigation and play it in the future, anticipation, mitigation, and adaptation to climate risks will require massive innovative approach. This will require bringing together funding, skills, policy, science, etc., more than is the case today. So you've all touched on those topics. So the question becomes, would love to hear the panelists' views on how to bring this forward more visibly. So I guess in a nutshell, this socio-bioeconomy is, it's not just emerging, as Bernard says, it will be at the core of the climate COP30. It is this blend of, blend of requirements, as he points out, funding, skills, policy, science. I'd love your perspectives on this, and I'm actually going to work backwards through the panel this time. So I'm going to start with you, Florian.
In situations like that, what we've seen is to go away from your core people that you normally would ask the question. We brought in artists, design students, designers, and ask them that question: how would you reach out? Because what you've got here is a communication and an outreach challenge. It's not so much about the facts. It's about winning over the hearts and minds of people. And this is where I believe artists, where teachers, journalists, designers have a massive role to play, and to come up with impressions, very different impressions of what you want to communicate, and put that out at the front and lead with that, and then come in with the facts and with the deep details and discussions later.
I love it. It brings out again this blend of the creative and the science, and the fantastic. Thanks a lot, Florian. Now to you, Peace.
Yeah, I would say I took a course in Finland. It talks about scenario. I think if we can bring like scenario mapping, bringing out, not just focusing on the science behind it, but like Florian said, the artists, bringing out community, ordinary people. How would they see, the bioeconomy? What do they see the bioeconomy solving for them? What need And then we look at also what are the losses in the bioeconomy, because this is a side that we don't normally talk about in the bioeconomy. We focus a lot on the prospects and the gains, and then we know that there are some people that will lose. So if there are losses, how do we mitigate against these losses so that we don't just focus only on the benefits of the bioeconomy without looking at the cost of the bioeconomy? So I would say if we have like a scenario building where people from diverse background come together to kind of look at how does the bioeconomy, contribute to their economy, to their community, and what are the losses in adopting this. I think that would bring it to more visible, and people might understand it beyond the science. That is almost difficult to understand at some point. Yeah.
Fantastic. Again, exciting elements to that answer. I think this diversity piece, and I think the COLI really is aiming to sort of try and do that by sort of having the globe coalesce around the thinking around the forest-based bioeconomy. But bringing out the people, and I think touching on that, there can be winners and losers here. So we need to think about that in that context-specific way, bringing in the community. So thanks for those insights. Vino, your thoughts?
Thank you, leader. I will be brief here. My experience with the Solomon Islands is a very small economy, and being a forestry sector is the main sector that actually supports our national economy. I think gender here and all, from children, youths, adults, we all benefit from forestry products, whether it's non-timber forest products or timber products. And we've involved many because of it becomes the main supporter of a national economy. However, with our increasing demand for our hardwood and the exhaustion of our forest resource, it really needs support from all our communities to understand that we are very low in timber. Now, some promotes plantation to fill in the gap to support the need or high demand for timber. For Solomon Islands, I guess we might be really looked into supporting the regeneration of our natural forests, because it also gives the multiple use for biodiversity and also non-timber forest products. So we need to balance that to continue supplying our some timber. But one thing that I want to stress out here is in improving or addressing innovation, especially in supporting the forest bioeconomy. Solomon Islands currently is looking into improving the genetics for short rotation plantations so that we can continue supply our timber demand in the country and also across the region. And I think what Florian has mentioned earlier on, carbon trading, carbon sequestration, is another means to support livelihood in Solomon Islands. But for us, we really need to rethink where we really protect for such products, because we totally depend on a small forest in a small islands in the middle of Pacific Ocean. Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Vino. I love the really applied, real world sort of feel that you provide us with here today, and really bringing out the importance of this livelihoods piece whilst, being able to, provide the range of forest products that we all rely on. So I really appreciate those insights. And last but not least, the first word went to you, Sham. It was brief, and now you get the final word. So brief, but give us, I will let you speak for us, a bit longer than 1 minute maybe this time.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Lyndall. I don't really have that much to say. I just wanted to applaud the panelists for all their inputs, much of which we at ITTO also share. And Vano, it's so good to see that you've moved into academia, but man, we should have worked harder at getting Solomon Islands together with us so that we could help you even more now. Now, with the question in the chat about how do we make this more obvious or more visible, I would agree completely with Florian. It is a comms challenge, number one. Number two, do all tropical countries support the definition of what a social bioeconomy should be? And I have one little question. What about the circularity of it? So is the bioeconomy supposed to be complying with the rules of circularity or not? Because we talk about the circular economy. Now it's become bioeconomy. So a lot of these buzzwords are being coined, right? Now IGTO has actually implemented close to 1,300 projects on the ground in the 39 years of its existence. None of them actually mention bioeconomy specifically. But those projects have contributed to so much more and a lot of what the SDGs actually demand for. So when we talk about enabling the youth, gender empowerment, the empowerment of women actually, making them financially independent while they adopt agroforestry practices which supplements their income, and they can actually afford to educate their children to a far better level because of the income that they're generating. So if that's not circular bioeconomy, or if that's not circular social bioeconomy, I don't know what is. So the definitions of it needs to be really clear. We are on board. Please don't get me wrong. We are definitely on board, but we need everyone to have the same understanding. So that's where we come back to Florian's comment earlier. It's a comms and outreach challenge, right? But IGTO is more than happy to help disseminate and advocate for this, provided we all agree on a definition of what it's meant to bring. And with the plantations and all the other species to contribute to the bioeconomy, we are also with you. After all, ladies and gentlemen, you know, sustainably managed and sustainably and legally harvested forests does not equate to deforestation. This is where we need the support of the more developed economies and markets to help the tropical countries achieve what they wish to achieve together, you know. It's a mutual, like I said, it's a matter of mutual interest from the producers and the consumers. But if the path to achieving is made far more complex, then it becomes difficult. And that's why we have non-achievement or failures. Am I right? Right? So I think we all need to support each other. And it's the most efficient nature-based solution. So when it comes to climate mitigation, adaptation, and the rest of it, again, we have been advocating that too. So it's carbon sequestration. Yes. It's carbon storage, another issue. Carbon accounting and credit sharing. We are involved in talks on all these matters. But some of our members feel that tropical countries should stick to their strengths. But then it wouldn't be fair to deprive them from being involved in carbon discussions or from carbon accounting. But I fully agree that the certification of all these other additional values that come out of forests would be extremely complicated. Florian touched on this too. For example, water. There was another comment in the chat column asking, so why is it we're not highlighting water? Water is a forest resource also. Forests are a water catchment area. But how do you certify the water that comes from its origins, which will be in the mountains, until it reaches the sea when it crosses various different land structures? So for the part that flows through forest, if a forest is third-party, independently audited, certified, then you can certify the water resource which flows within the boundaries of that forest area. What happens afterwards? How do you account for that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that will transpire, but we are again all for water resources. Next year, water is going to become a big thing again, rightly so. So we need to think about that. But in terms of forest areas and communities and how you certify water resources and sources, it's again a public good. It doesn't belong to anyone in particular. It's for the whole global community. So again, something to think about. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. I just wish to thank all the panelists for your contributions, and also to you, Linda, for your patience. I'll stop there. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks a lot, Sham. It was brilliant. And, you know, I love that final point about sort of the global community coming around this. And in the interest of time, because we have run out of time, I won't try and summarize all what you've said, but it is a nice ending for this incredible session that we've had, that are really remarkable panelists. I'm so thrilled to have such a diverse group with us today, you know, bringing us from, you know, your insights, Florian, around AI through to, you know, this applied understanding of the need to create partnerships between global north and south and empowering youth voices and local communities in particular. We do need to close. We're a couple of minutes over the over time, but I do want to again just very quickly express my thanks to our co-chairs from Australia and New Zealand. You provided the perfect opening to this session, and thank you for your support of both this session but also this area of work, and of course again to our funding partners Austria and Finland. The next webinar, you'll see a new face to moderate. So on the 30th of September, Sven Walter, my colleague, will moderate a session on accelerating inclusive agri-food systems, transformation with forest trees and wild species. So for those of you looking to hear about non-wood forest products, please tune in. And there will be a brief survey after today's session that we will email to you. So we would love your answers from that to help us to improve, but also further insights about your thoughts on this topic. So thanks again for your engagement and your questions and your commitment to the topic. Thanks for staying online for a few extra minutes. And yeah, look forward to continuing to engage with you through the session, or the future sessions, I should say. And I wish everybody a wonderful rest of the day, evening, afternoon, wherever you may be in the world, and look forward to seeing you again online in a few months' time. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you
See you.
all.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you and
Bye-bye.
bye, everyone. Hello,
See you.
Saeed.